डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह जी आज के इस इनॉग्रल सेशन में हम हृदय से स्वागत करते हैं ऑनरेबल मिनिस्टर ऑफ स्टेट इंडिपेंडेंट चार्ज ऑफ मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी एंड मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ अर्थ साइंसेज, Minister of State in the Prime Minister's Office, Minister of State in the Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions, Department of Atomic Energy and Department of Space, डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह जी का हम हृदय से अभिनंदन करते हैं। हम स्वागत करते हैं कैबिनेट सेक्रेटरी श्री राजीव गौबा जी का, सेक्रेटरी डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ पर्सनल एंड ट्रेनिंग श्री प्रदीप कुमार त्रिपाठी जी का, Secretary Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, Shri V. Srinivas ji. Joint Secretary, Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, Shri N.P.S. Rajput का। भारत के प्रथम गृह मंत्री, द आयरन मैन ऑफ इंडिया, लौह पुरुष सरदार पटेल ने सिविल सर्वेंट्स को स्टील फ्रेम ऑफ इंडिया कहा था। ये 2 दिन सिविल सर्वेंट्स के लिए पब्लिक सर्विस, पब्लिक गवर्नेंस में विभिन्न सफलताओं का पर्व भी है और मजबूत इरादों और दृढ़ इच्छा शक्ति के साथ नागरिक हित और देश हित के लिए पुनः संकल्प का गर्व भी है। भारत के माथे पर आज़ादी का 75वां सूरज जगमगा रहा है। विजन इंडिया एट 2047 गवर्नेंस की आकांक्षा ज्योति जलाने के लिए हमारा विनम्र निवेदन है माननीय डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह जी आपसे कि कृपया मणिदीप को प्रज्वलित करके कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत करें। मंचासीन सभी महानुभावों गणमान्यों से भी निवेदन है कि कृपया वे भी इस शुभ कार्य में सम्मिलित हों। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद माननीय आपका। और अब हम आग्रह करते हैं सेक्रेटरी DARPG श्री V. श्रीवास से कि कृपया स्वागत संबोधन दें।
Honorable Minister of State for Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions and Minister of State in the Prime Minister's Office, Dr. Jiten Singh ji, Cabinet Secretary Shri Rajiv Gauba ji, Secretary DOPT Shri P.K. Tripathi ji, former Cabinet Secretaries, Secretaries to Government of India, Chief Secretaries, Additional Chief Secretaries, Principal Secretaries of States, distinguished civil servants, Joint Secretary DRPG, award winners, esteemed colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to welcome you all to the 15th Civil Service Day celebrations which are starting today. At the outset, I would like to extend a warm and hearty welcome to Minister of State for Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions and Minister of State in the Prime Minister's Office, Dr. Jiten Singh ji, to the inaugural session and thank him for his constant support and guidance in all our initiatives. I welcome Cabinet Secretary Shri Rajiv Gauba ji, who has been a great source of strength and guided us in the organization of the 15th Civil Services Day and played a leadership role in implementation of the scheme for Prime Minister's Awards for Excellence in Public Administration 2021. I welcome all civil servants who are joining us today through web rooms across the states, union territories and districts. Civil Services Day 2022 is being celebrated in Vigyan Bhavan after 2018. On this occasion, I welcome the award winners under the 2019 and 2020 scheme for PM's Awards for Excellence in Public Administration, in addition to the 2021 award winners. The theme for this year's Civil Services Day is Vision India 2047, bringing citizens and government closer. The focus is on young civil servants who will govern India in 2047. On this occasion, we draw inspiration from the vision and determination of Sardar Patel for setting up of the All India Services in independent India. Today's conference comprises of 2 plenary sessions and 4 breakaway sessions in which the top leadership of India and young officers who have shown outstanding performance would be addressing the sessions. The theme of Plenary Session 1 is Vision India 2047 Governance. Digital transformation of governance necessitates a coordinated culture and technology shift in workforce. Agile governments modernize with times, innovate faster to meet citizen demands and expectations. Future governance models are flatter, agile, streamlined, and technology-enabled. The theme of Plenary Session 2 is Atmanirbhar Bharat, focus on exports. In response to the Honorable Prime Minister's call for Atmanirbhar Bharat, the nation has sought to cut import dependence, boost exports, and promote domestic manufacturing. The 4 breakaway sessions are on the themes PM Gati Shakti, digital payments, good governance through PM Swanidhi Yojana, One District, One Product scheme, and the Aspirational District program with a saturation approach. Collectively, the breakaway sessions will discuss the essential policy areas which will shape India's future governance model. The Honorable Prime Minister will address the valedictory session and confer the awards on April 21, 2022. The details of the awards are present in the folders provided to each guest. The Honorable Prime Minister personally devoted a considerable amount of time to restructuring of the scheme. There are 6 categories under the scheme in which 16 awards will be presented. 715 districts participated in the scheme and 2,105 nominations were received. The nominations were screened at 3 stages by screening committees chaired by additional secretaries, an expert committee of secretaries, and by an empowered committee chaired by Cabinet Secretary. I am grateful to Cabinet Secretary and all members of the expert and screening committees who have participated in this exercise. I would like to thank all the line ministries and departments for the support extended to DRPG in conducting the spot studies. The shortlisted best practices received under the scheme are being published as an e-book which will be released by the Honorable Prime Minister tomorrow. An exhibition on the award-winning initiatives will be inaugurated by Honorable Dr. Jiten Singh Ji and Cabinet Secretary after the inaugural session, and delegates are invited to visit the exhibition. Once again, let me welcome all the chairpersons and speakers at the plenary and breakout sessions and all delegates participating in this 2-day event. Jai Hind.
धन्यवाद सचिव महोदय DAR NPG। अब हमारी विनम्र अनुनय है कैबिनेट सेक्रेटरी श्री राजीव गौबा जी से कि कृपया अपने उद्गार प्रकट करें।
Honorable Dr. Jiten Singh Ji, Minister of State for Personnel, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is after a gap of 3 years that we are celebrating the Civil Services Day the way we used to. Tomorrow, on the Civil Services Day, in the valedictory session, the Prime Minister will give away the awards for excellence and will address us. We could not have this event in 2019 due to general elections, and then for the next 2 years due to COVID-19. So it is a matter of great happiness that we are meeting here today, and I feel absolutely privileged to be here and to have this opportunity to speak. COVID-19 has tested our systems to the most extreme degree. As a nation, we have always risen to the challenge whenever there was a crisis, and our civil services have also demonstrated a remarkable ability to respond to crisis situations. However, COVID-19 was and continues to be a challenge of unprecedented magnitude, and I would be failing in my duty if I do not today express my deep appreciation of the tireless efforts put in by civil servants across the country at all levels, cities, districts, state governments, and ministries here, to deal with this pandemic under the most trying circumstances, often in the face of personal risks and personal suffering. We also lost several dear colleagues who were working till the very end, even when they were themselves battling the disease. Important issues related to national priorities would be discussed in this conference, and civil servants across ministries, across seniorities and services, and practitioners in the field and eminent experts would have the opportunity to share their knowledge and experiences. Our endeavor should be that practical and implementable recommendations emerge from these deliberations, which can be shared with the central ministries, with state governments, and with district officers for being adopted and implemented so that our programs, our flagship missions, and our policies can be suitably recalibrated, refined, and improved so that our outcomes and our delivery also improve, because that is our ultimate objective. In his address to the nation on 15th August last year, Prime Minister outlined a vision for India at 2047. The theme for this year's Civil Services Day, Vision India 2047, governance, bringing citizens and government closer, is therefore most appropriate. A plenary session on this subject will deliberate on the key elements of this vision. And I hope this will provide important inputs for the work which is being done by 10 sectoral groups of secretaries for preparing a blueprint for India at 2047. This is an exercise in long-term thinking and long-term planning, and need not, and in fact should not, be constrained by the existing institutional design or the existing policy framework or the existing regulatory structures. We have requested the secretaries groups to get suggestions and feedbacks from the states, from officers in the field, from young officers on their vision of where we should be in 2047 and how to reach there. Another important topic being discussed today is Atmanirbhar Bharat with focus on exports. These deliberations will be useful for evolving the roadmap for building indigenous capabilities, for creating a conducive policy and regulatory framework for large-scale manufacturing, and harnessing the full potential for exports of our products in states and districts across the country. Gati Shakti is a transformational initiative for developing and implementing a national master plan for multimodal connectivity, for ensuring coordinated planning and execution to build state-of-art infrastructure, to bring down logistics costs, and to improve our competitiveness. The success of each of these initiatives depends on our willingness and ability to internalize these concepts and to convert them into actionable points, and on sustained efforts by all of us to implement them. Other sessions include the One District, One Product scheme, moving towards saturation in aspirational districts, and PM Swanidhi Yojana. Many of you are serving as collectors or as central Prabhari officers in aspirational districts, and the transformational journey of aspirational districts has demonstrated what regular indicator-based monitoring can accomplish. Now, in the next stage, the saturation approach should ensure that the full complement of all government schemes reaches every individual in these districts. The One District, One Product scheme has started producing results in terms of improved yields and enhancing farmers' incomes. I have observed in the course of scrutiny of nominations for the PM's Awards for Excellence in Public Administration, the benefits that are being reaped by local farmers and entrepreneurs from enhanced productivity and marketing tie-ups. For example, of Makhana in Darbhanga district in Bihar, and of black rice in Siddharthnagar district in UP. Even in remote regions like Ladakh, the impact of One District, One Product scheme has been felt with increased yields of apricot and sea buckthorn. The district collectors who have made these changes possible will be sharing their experiences in the forthcoming session. The PM Swanidhi Yojana has also resulted in improving the incomes of street vendors. More importantly, it has given them a new sense of dignity and security by integrating them with the formal economy and by giving them secure places in the vending zones. Civil Services Day is a day of celebration and at the same time a day for reflection and introspection. Expectations from civil servants, especially the young civil servants, are huge. We must equip ourselves to meet these expectations. We need to constantly learn, innovate, and adapt to be able to do justice to these expectations. Government has recently launched Mission Karmayogi and the iGot platform. This is an extremely useful digital platform. It is still a work in progress. It is designed to help officers update their knowledge, learn role-specific skills and competencies at their convenience and from the best resources in the world, anywhere, anytime. I would encourage all colleagues, particularly the younger colleagues, to take full advantage of this platform. Besides job-specific competencies, we need to be conscious of the larger context of our actions and of the overarching goals and priorities, and our role in accomplishing them. Over the last few years, major reforms have been implemented in several areas of governance. Government-citizen interface has become easier. Many processes have become online. These have resulted in remarkable improvement in the ease of doing business. The Prime Minister has now enlarged the scope of the exercise to ease of living. We should make it our mission to make life easier for citizens by reducing the burden of unnecessary compliances, by reducing their dependence on government. We need to rethink the role of government in the economy and in the lives of people at large. With the active involvement of ministries and states, a great deal of work has been done in this regard in the last 2 years. Around 25,000 compliances have been either removed altogether or radically streamlined, simplified. Many processes have been radically overhauled. New guidelines issued by the Department of Telecom, for example, have made work from home or work from anywhere in India possible without any hassles. Business process outsourcing companies or other service providers now do not require any registration, nor do they require to furnish any bank guarantee. Collecting, storing, publishing, disseminating geospatial data used to require multiple approvals from multiple agencies. The Department of Science and Technology's new guidelines have done away with the need for any approval or any license. The new drone rules promulgated by the Ministry of Civil Aviation have made it easy to manufacture drones in India and to use them for a range of economic and commercial activities. These are just some of the examples of the enormous amount of work which has been done by our colleagues in different ministries and in state governments. But reducing compliance burden will have to be a continuous process so that people can devote their time and energy to productive work. The risk of imprisonment for actions or omissions that are not fraudulent or the outcome of mala-fide intent is a huge problem for citizens, for private sector, creating opportunities for harassment and rent seeking. Under Prime Minister's directions, we are now focusing on decriminalization of such minor offenses and violations. And this work needs to be taken up as a mission by each one of us. At the heart of all these initiatives is the concept of trust-based governance, that is, having faith in citizens. I think we all need to internalize this concept in our day-to-day work. Prime Minister has been stressing the need to de-siloize the working of government departments and follow whole-of-government approach. our experience in the management of COVID-19 pandemic has established the effectiveness of this approach. The entire machinery of the central government, ministries, health, pharmaceuticals, DPIIT, railways, defense, MEA, you name it, were all brought together through the mechanism of empowered groups of secretaries, comprising secretaries and other senior officers of various ministries. And they worked together with the state governments, with collectors and municipal commissioners to ensure a comprehensive and coordinated response, quick decisions, and speedy implementation, which made it possible to ramp up our testing, overcome shortages of PPEs and ventilators, develop indigenous capacities, and implement a vaccination drive on the massive scale that we have witnessed. This concept of whole-of-government approach needs to become mainstream and a regular part of our thinking and our work. I have been closely associated with the implementation of PM's award scheme for excellence in public administration. It is heartening to note the outstanding work being done by officers in the districts, in state governments, and in central ministries. I would like to compliment all the winners. I would also like to compliment those who could not make it into the final list. Their work and initiatives were also excellent, and they must continue with their good work. Technology can be a game changer if it is fully leveraged. The CoWIN platform is the latest and shining example which has been globally acknowledged. There are limitless possibilities that can be leveraged, as many young officers in the field and in various ministries are demonstrating. The good thing is that today, the ecosystem of governance is far more conducive to change than ever before, and far more supportive of efforts at innovation. We must take full advantage of this. Lastly, let us not allow ourselves to be discouraged by the sweeping generalizations made now and then about the civil service in general or about a particular service. They do grave injustice to scores of civil servants who are working silently, tirelessly, and selflessly for the betterment of society. Yes, we do need to introspect. We do need reforms like every other institution. If we want to remain relevant, we must focus on delivery, on improving our capabilities and our skills, and above all, on maintaining the highest traditions of civil service in our work and in our conduct. I hope all of us will take keen interest in and actively participate in various sessions. I extend my warm greetings to everyone. Thank you. Jai Hind.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कैबिनेट सेक्रेटरी महोदय श्री राजीव गौबा जी। माननीय डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह जी अति महत्वपूर्ण मंत्रालयों की जिम्मेदारियों को बड़ी कर्मठता से निभाते हुए जो मानक स्थापित कर रहे हैं, जो उनमें जज्बा है पब्लिक सर्विस का, देश प्रेम का, वो हम सभी के लिए, खासकर सिविल सर्वेंट्स के लिए एक प्रेरणा है, हम सबके लिए अनुकरणीय है। हमारा विनम्र अनुरोध है माननीय आपसे कि कृपया हम सबको संबोधित करें, हम सबका मार्गदर्शन करें। सर, काइंडली गाइड अस एंड शो अस द वे फॉरवर्ड।
Cabinet Secretary Rajiv Goyaba ji, Secretary ARPG Mr. V. Srinivas, Secretary DOPT Mr. Tripathi, Mr. Rajput. I can see sitting in the audience some of the very senior veterans as well as senior officers in different ministries and departments of the Government of India. At the outset, I think I have to pat the back of Mr. Srinivas, because if I don't do so, who else would? Srinivas and his team have worked tirelessly for the last several weeks organizing this event, and knowing the kind of person he is, I'm sure he wouldn't have slept last night. And since I'm now got used to receiving about 4 or 5 WhatsApp messages every day from him, updating me on different aspects, I was actually expecting a WhatsApp this morning also, reminding me that I should be there in time. And before that, I sent him a message, please tell him, be calm. The clock will not ring 10 before I reach there. And I made it a 5 to 10. So what I'm trying to say is that much of effort and consistent work goes behind organizing an event like this. Sometimes we don't realize this. As Mr. Goiba was mentioning, the Civil Services Day is being held after about 2 or 3 years. But I think we can take pride in realizing that in the last 7-8 years, ever since Mr. Modi took over as the Prime Minister, we have actually succeeded in giving it a new kind of a format and a new outlook. And the first Civil Services Day, which was addressed by Sardar Patel in 1948 on the same day, that was 21st of April. And of course, that is a part of legacy because DOPT at that time was part of the Home Ministry, and therefore the Home Minister had to address that before it later on became a part of the Prime Ministerial charge. And since then, for the almost 6 decades, it was, of course, a very grand affair, being sought after. But without sounding impolite, I would say it was more of a reunion happening. We would have an event for half a day, then all the officers would also get together, the past, present, the superannuated, the serving, and then acha kaun sa batch, 60 batch, 65 batch. So that kind of comradeship, which of course is important equally. But when this government came in, we suggested that we should convert, as we have tried to do in the other departments also, which I am interested with, even in science technology. We should rather try to combine this fellowship with some kind of an academic activity, which I was used doing when I was actively working as a medical professional. So we try to give it a 2-day format, split it in different sessions, and give it a kind of a theme for every year, and then sub-themes for each of these sessions, which are relevant to the contemporary India, also relevant to the priorities of the government in place, also relevant to the flagship programs of the government. And I'm glad that, of course, in the beginning I was a little apprehensive how the senior bureaucrats would react, कि भई हमें पढ़ाना शुरू कर दिया, हम तो सबको पढ़ाने वाले हैं. But I'm glad that they have cooperated because we live to learn, and the knowledge expansion, or what we say in the scientific terms, the doubling of knowledge is happening so fast that it's not easy to keep pace. And as was being mentioned by Srinivas on the very first Civil Services Day, Sardar Patel said, and I quote, "Your predecessors were brought up in the tradition in which they kept themselves aloof from the common run of the people. And it will be your bounden duty to treat the common man of India as your own." Unquote. But the matter of fact is that even before Sardar Patel had finished speaking this sentence, the role of the civil servant had already changed. And in fact, it changed on the midnight of 1947, 15th August. The collector came to be known as District Development Commissioner. The nomenclature itself was symbolic of the change that was happening, which may not have been realized at that instant moment. But the collector was known as collector because he was supposed to collect revenue for the British Empire and also to impose the writ of empire. Books were written, literature was written, short stories written, pictures made, lagan, other things. Now he was District Development Commissioner. He was supposed to collect revenue, generate revenue for a welfare state. And over the years, this role has evolved. The expectation level has gone up, accountability has increased, the transparency has increased, the citizen participation has increased. And therefore, I think it's all the more necessary that an occasion like this becomes also a very important occasion for a serious introspection about how we move from here and where do we move. And many of us are fond of saying, though rightly so, that a civil services is dedicated to common man, and that is the ultimate goal. All of us say so. I think all those who spoke before me would say this over the day also. But actually it means more than what is being said. we have no option. At the risk of sounding little unauthorized, we have no option but to be citizen friendly. Because I can foresee times happening when citizen is going to take over a lot much of governance. And therefore, with the tremendous foresight, Prime Minister, soon after he took over on the 26th of May 2014, he gave us the mantra, maximum governance, minimum government. I don't know how much we would have realized the seriousness of this, but this is going to happen. I think a day is coming. The governance is going to be looked after by governance, by the people who govern themselves. And that is why when I was discussing with Srinivas and I said we should have the theme of Vision 2047 and we should have a committee constituted to prepare a document. And the first two presentations I was not very much, I won't say impressed because I have no entitlement to be impressed or not, but I look forward to be educated every day. So I try to make this point that unfortunately we are still looking at 2047 through the prism of 2022. And maybe in 2047 the civil services may lose their relevance. The artificial intelligence may take over in a big way. The citizen may take over. So we first need to have indices. Like if you go back 25 years back from now, that was exactly 1997. What was revolutionary at that time? You had the courier service, revolutionized it. The entire dark system collapsed. It was a new revolution and a new source of livelihood. Where is it now? You have STD booths, people making livelihood. And being in political, public life, I remember, people would come to the elected representatives, साहब एक STD का लाइसेंस दिलवा दीजिए, औलाद पल जाएगी, बच्चे पल जाएंगे, लेकिन बच्चों के पलने से पहले ही STD बूथ बंद हो गए. So you see how fast this 25 years runs, and now the pace is even faster. You had those small cassettes, what is that, T series, you would carry home with a great one. Where is all that gone? So it's difficult actually because we look at the things from our perspective. So I think it's a very difficult task actually which we have taken upon ourselves. But when the Prime Minister says perform, reform and transform, the same mantra will be underlying throughout where we go. And I am glad that over the last 8 years, much headway has been made which was actually waiting to happen. As Mr. Goiba rightly mentioned, the e-office thing, and in the context of COVID. I think the greatest test for the e-office experiment was the COVID times. At least in this ministry, the Ministry of Personnel, we did not allow the work to be interrupted even for a single day. And even during the lockdown, since I used to virtually speak to each of the officers, because we had that 50% thing, so those sitting at home, some of them not well, some of them positive, sometimes they're working. So I still remember, and I very fondly keep narrating, one of the junior officers said, the new dictum, sir, should be minimum attendance, maximum output. Because the officers working from home were working even on weekends, on Saturdays, Sundays, festivals. They had got out, they had liberated themselves from that mindset. कि 10 से 5 तक काम करना है, बीच में लंच ब्रेक. Like खुशवंत सिंह wrote that famous short story. 10 बजे दौड़ते दौड़ते पहुंचे, बस लेट हो गई, 11 बजे पहुंचे, अखबार नहीं पढ़ सकी, 11:30 बज गए, चाय पी, 12 बज गए, इतनी देर में लंच ब्रेक हो गई. जब तक वापस आए तो किसी ने कहा साहब DOPT का होम मिनिस्ट्री के साथ हॉकी का मैच चल रहा है, तो आप यहाँ बैठे हैं, तो वहाँ चले गए मैच खेलने. और खेलते खेलते 7 बज गए. जब वापस आए थके हारे खटिया पे बैठे तो वो आई और बोली कि साहब क्यों इतना काम करते हो, कितनी बार कहा. तो बोलते भगवान तुम्हें क्या पता भारत सरकार ऐसी ही चलती है क्या. So this is, I think, a liberation of the mindset that has happened thanks to Prime Minister Modi. He could foresee the merit of this e-working even before we were actually confronted with this kind of a problem. And I'm glad to say that the other ministry donor where I was for almost 7 years, we were the first to go e-line nearly 6 years ago because we realized that we had to remain connected to Shillong where we had the NEC headquarters. Similarly, this is also a government, I'm saying so because being a researcher and a scientific mind, we keep thinking while moving around. Very often this is not realized. Often each government, each politician, each leader, each officer takes pride in narrating मैंने ये कानून लाया। आप भी रिटायरमेंट के बाद जब सुबह सैर करते हैं, मेरे ज़माने में ये हुआ था, प्रिवेंशन ऑफ करप्शन एक्ट मैंने लाया था, फिर मैंने ऐसे किया, फिर मैंने, देन यू टेक लॉट ऑफ, you enjoy narrating your, anecdote, regardless of whether the others are interested or not. But we do so. That's a human nature. This is a government which would take pride in having said that we did away with many rules. 1,500 rules we have done away. Within weeks after taking over in 2014, we did away with that gazetted attestation. And I placed before the seniors, I said, this is something which, the kind of background that we come from, when we used to be getting into class 9 or 10, we didn't know where to look for a gazetted officer. For me, miles together, you didn't have access. And I remember when I was in class 11, I had to shell out ₹5, which I also didn't have, somebody else paid for. Because the good Samaritan came, he said, give me all your certificates, I'll get them attested. I know where the gazetted officer lives. Because we didn't know whether he has 2 noses or 3 ears, what kind of, who is guest, what is he looks like. And the Honorable Prime Minister was so supportive. He said, if that is so, and we actually sent out a message that we have the capacity to trust the citizens of this country, the youth of this country. The Assistant Secretary experiment is another one, which is path-breaking. 3 months of stint. We were not sure how well it would be taken. We actually, why I am saying so, that we have undertaken some of the revolutionary experiments, which a lot of anticipation that they might antagonize those with whom we are experimenting. Like, for example, extending Civil Services Day into a 2-day academic year, and also assistancy. In fact, there were opinions that the states, they would like to go to states straight away, the state cadre to become SDM. Some of the states also, state governments also insisted that no, we would not like them to stay back for 3 months. And Honorable Prime Minister also gave us the freedom. He said, you can experiment and then decide whether to move on, how much or how not. And we were actually not very sure. But then we could counsel these youngsters. They say, look here, this is good for you. Otherwise, when you straight away go at the age of 25, 26 as SDM, and you are treated like an emperor, you get confused which world you have landed in. And the rest of the life, So it's a great kind of a good leveling happening over here. And this we felt vindicated during COVID times, when each of the members of the ministry were allotted districts to monitor on day-to-day basis. I was monitoring 22 districts. When I would call up, we would call up the collectors and the police heads of the district. The youngster on the other side would say, sir, मैं assistant secretary था ना, आपको भूल गए? So that kind of level of confidence among youngsters who would otherwise not be able to visit the central secretariat or have a glimpse of the Prime Minister for an entire service career. And now they look back to it with not only a great degree of nostalgia, but also they look up to some of the seniors with whom they worked as their mentors. Similarly, aspirational district. I think it's a trendsetter, something unique which might not have been tried in government sector across the world. It was a scientific basis laid down on the basis of 30, 40 indices which we tried, and not necessarily the backward district. Because we had indices, certain districts may be lagging behind, so how best to bring it at par with the best one on that parameter in the state vis-a-vis best one at the national level, so that there would be a mutual competitive sense and they would be able to determine their own threshold standards. And since I was actively involved along with Amitabh Kant and others, so I think it was a great learning experience. And the young civil servants were so innovative in carrying forward these saturation points. We had a problem, why I am saying so is that since this is also going to be a learning period for 2 days, we had a joint secretary, because as the cabinet secretary was mentioning, the government had appointed prabharis for different aspirational districts. So we had this lady for a northeastern district. The problem was when the gas cylinder would be exhausted, how best to replace it. So she innovated a method. She called the sarpanches there, entrusted them with a couple of cylinders, and said, "Aap hi mohtabar, aap hi leader. Aapne baantana aur baad mein mujhe hisab de dena." So it was a win-win situation. The representative would also feel happy कि मुझे चौधरी बना दिया, and she also got along to get her saturation points. So I think these new experiments, inspired by Prime Minister Modi, has actually induced us to experiment with ourselves as well and to discover some of the innovative traits which possibly even we didn't realize. Mission Karma Yogi has already spoken, Cabinet Secretary, shift from rule to role. Now, problem is that in the academy we are trained कि सरकार का इकबाल बना के रखना. So if I am health secretary, I have to pose that I can know more medicine than doctor, so that I can make even corrections in the prescription, because I have to command the doctors and the medical profession. Next day I go to agriculture, I become agriculture secretary, then I have to pose to be knowing agriculture more than the agriculturist. So I don't grudge that, because it's important to carry on this kind of a certain amount of authority located there. But this Karma Yogi will give it a scientific mechanism. You train yourself for the new role, wherever you are placed, whether it's empanelment or to transfer. So you have the confidence to be actually commanding over the department and the professions. And I think this become all the more important, because now lots of new schemes which have been flagged up by this government are hugely technology-based, science-based. And the same team headed by Mr. Tripathi, earlier by his predecessor, Mr. Chandra Moili, worked on the NRA, for which also we have to compliment them. And the combined eligibility test is going to be again a great revolution. So having been in this department for almost 8 years, more than the tenure of having worked with 6 DOPT secretaries and having with 6 ARPG secretaries, I have had the fortune of learned too many things from them. So I can go on and on. But just to cut that short, I would say the next, and of course the CP grams, which Srinivas is looking after. We just used to have 2 lakh registered complaints a year. Today we have 25 lakh. And a media person quipped कि मोदी सरकार के खिलाफ शिकायतों की तादाद बढ़ गई. And they asked me, and I said, no, the answer was given by 150 years ago by someone called Mirza Ghalib, who said कि जब तवक्को ही उठ गई गालिब क्यों किसी का गिला करे कोई. We have been prompt. It's not easy. The lady heading the team under Mr. Srinivas used to sit till 1 o'clock in the night to make sure that every Friday evening we would have a disposal rate of not less than 95-96%. We won the trust of the complainants by following timelines. And I used to myself sit on the Friday evenings. And when for a couple of consecutive weeks, she came back with 98%, having sat till 2 o'clock, I told her, ma'am, I think you'll have to spend full night to achieve 100%. Because till 3 o'clock you achieve only 98. So that kind of diligence and dedication has gone into this. And now, before I conclude, I think what we have before us, as Prime Minister is always being saying this, Amrit Mahakal and 75 years, and that is the first session dedicated to the 2047. I think when we are in the process of preparing the document, we also would have to keep in mind our focus on those who have active 25 years to put in, because they are going to be the architects of Century India. And many of us may not be around at that time, because now the 70% of the population is below the age of, we are all in minority, although market provides all kinds of colors, so you can choose to look how old you want. But the matter of fact is that we will have to focus on those who are there to contribute in the civil services actively for the next 25 years. And our contribution of this generation could be in the form of building up their capacity. So that even if we are not playing an active role, if we are not around at that time, we would have the satisfaction of saying, that look here, we've also contributed in building the capacity of these, the seniors like Mr. Goiba and others. And they would in turn have the privilege of telling their children, grandchildren, look here, I was the Secretary DOPT when India observed 100 years of its independence. So it's that kind of a teamwork which I have envisaged and suggested to Mr. Srinivas, and we would also have a team which would be working in that direction. Thank you very much, and I'm sure the sessions that would follow would give us a good take-home message. Thank you.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद और आभार माननीय आपकी प्रेरणा के लिए। और अब हम निवेदन करते हैं जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव रिफॉर्म्स एंड पब्लिक ग्रीवांसेस श्री NBS राजपूत आपसे कि कृपया आभार प्रकट करें।
All the respected dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, it is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks in this inaugural session of 15th Civil Services Day celebrations. First, I would like to thank the Honorable Minister of State, Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pension, Dr. Jiten Singh Ji, for his kind and inspiring message and his continuous support and guidance for this event. I thank you, sir, for inaugurating the exhibition, showcasing exemplary execution of the different schemes and programs. No word can suffice to adequately thank the respected Cabinet Secretary Sri Rajiv Gauba for guidance, his kind words and support sir has extended for the process both for the Prime Minister Awards and Civil Service Day celebration. It is my pleasure to thank Secretary Deputy Sri P.K. Tripathi Ji for his kind presence and support for the celebrations. It is my pleasant duty to thank our Secretary DRPG Sri Vishnu Ji for his encouragement, support and continuous guidance for the journey to this day. Thanks to all the respected secretaries and senior officers of the Government of India and members of various committees to screen and scrutinize the unprecedented number of applications received for the awards. Thanks to those officers who went all over the country for the sports studies for shortlisted initiatives. Thanks to all those who are the part of this two-day proceedings as panelists, rapporteur, and participants. Thanks are due to all DMs, DCs, award winners, all the states, UTs, and organizations who not only enthusiastically participate in the awards process, but also tirelessly work for the priority programs and schemes. I thank all my seniors and colleagues who I cannot name individually for their kind support and guidance. I thank all my colleagues in DRPG, our knowledge partner Deloitte, NIC team, and all the stakeholders and agencies who have been involved in this exercise for last several months. Last but not least, thanks are due to all members of the print and electronic media who are covering out our 2 days event. Thank you all and wish you a fruitful and enjoyable 2 days ahead. Namaskar.
धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद माननीय मंत्री जी आपका पधारने के लिए और सभी गणमान्य सम्माननीय महानुभावों का भी हृदय से धन्यवाद और आभार। अभी माननीय मंत्री जी एग्जीबिशन का इनॉग्रेशन करने के लिए प्रस्थान करेंगे। आप सभी से निवेदन है कुछ देर अपने ही स्थान पर आप सभी ठहरें। आप सभी से निवेदन है कुछ देर अपने ही स्थान पर रहें। माननीय मंत्री जी एग्जीबिशन का शुभारंभ करने के लिए प्रस्थान कर रहे हैं। जैसा कि आप सभी जानते हैं कि इसके बाद में कुछ ही देर के बाद में प्लीनरी सेशन होगा, उसमें माननीय डॉक्टर जितेंद्र सिंह जी यहाँ पर अध्यक्षता करेंगे, चेयर करेंगे। आप सभी से निवेदन है कि कृपया आधे घंटे के बाद यहीं प्लीनरी हॉल में पधारिएगा। चाय की व्यवस्था की गई है, यहाँ पर एट्रियम है, यहाँ पर सामने फॉयर एरिया है वहाँ पर, और एनेक्सी में भी की गई है। तो कृपया आप सभी चाय पर पधारिए और उसके बाद आधे घंटे के बाद हम सभी यहाँ पर फर्स्ट प्लीनरी सेशन के लिए एकत्रित होंगे। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद और शुभकामनाएं।